This video will analyze the guitar and bass parts that appear in the interlude of the song, which begins at 2 minutes and 54 seconds. Tablature for each part will briefly be displayed after its respective analysis. A demo of all parts combined will close out the video. The tuning used in this video and on the record is E-flat and 440 wavelength calibration. If you are unsure how to tune E-flat, please watch the video, E-flat tuning and enharmonic notes for guitar and bass by Marc Wilson. We will start out with guitar 1. The interlude is going to be 24 measures long. We're going to begin with a G5 power chord, and that's where the first finger is the root note on the low E string at the 3rd fret. The first 2 beats of the first measure are going to be 8th notes counted 1 and picked down then up on this chord. On 2, we're going to have a quarter note rest. And when we do that rest, you'll notice I use the side of my hand to deaden the strings. On 3 beat, we're going to go to a C5 power chord, and that's where the first finger is the root note on the A string at the 3rd fret. We'll play 2 more 8th notes here, counted 3 and picked down and up. And on 4, we're going to have another quarter note rest. So with the 4 count lead in, this is what the first measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And now we reach the second measure. What we're going to do is place the 3rd finger on the A string to 3rd fret. We'll start out the measure by picking this note down on 1 and letting it ring out as an 8th note. We'll pick that same note again down on the and beat after 1, but this time it's going to ring out as a 16th note. On the beat, which is the final 16th note of the first quarter of this measure, we're going to go with the middle finger to that same string at the 2nd fret and pick this up. On the 2 beat, we're going to go back with the 3rd finger to that same string at the 3rd fret and pick it down, but this time it rings out as a 16th note. And on the E beat, we're going to go back to the middle finger on that same string at the 2nd fret and pick this up. Okay, we've got the first half of the second measure covered. So with the 4 count lead in, let's play it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 E. Okay, notice the picking motion. Down, down, up, down, up. Okay. Now on the 3 beat, we're going to go back with that 3rd finger to the same string to 3rd fret, and we're going to play exactly what we did for the first quarter of the measure. 8th note followed by 2 16th notes counted 3 and a, just like this, 3 and a, pick down, down, up. To close out the second measure, what we're going to do is on 4, we're going to go back to the C note where the 3rd finger is on the A string to 3rd fret and pick it down just like we did on 2. But on the E beat, instead of going to the 2nd fret on that string, we're going to go to the 1st fret on the low E string instead and pick that up. Okay, this is a dotted 8th note which rings out for 3/16 of the measure. So with a 4 count lead in, what we're going to do is we'll just do the second measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and a 2 E, 3 and a 4 E. The third measure is going to be an exact repeat of the first measure. So let's skip ahead to the 4th measure. What we're going to do here is called a trill. We're going to do a series of hammer-ons and pull-offs in 16th note timing. We'll begin by placing the middle finger on the A string at the 3rd fret. We'll pick this down on 1, and it's the only time we're going to pick this string during this measure. Okay, on the E beat after 1, we're going to pull off to the 1st finger, which is on the same string to 2nd fret. On the and beat, we'll hammer on with the middle finger back to the same string at the 3rd fret. And on the beat, we're going to pull off to the 1st finger again on the beat. We're going to continue this throughout the entire measure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a 4 count lead in and play the 4th measure. And keep in mind that it's counted 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda, which might be a little too fast to count aloud. But just so you understand the timing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda. Let's run through all 4 measures in sequence just one time. I'll give you the 4 count lead in and count aloud as I play. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and a 2 E, 3 and a 4 E, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and. Measures 5 through 8 are going to be exact repeats of measures 1 through 4. What we'll do is repeat that pattern once more to give us 8 total measures. We'll repeat that same pattern 2 more times after that to give us measures 9 through 16 as well. But this time we'll shift everything up a full step in pitch. Notice that the pattern will start measure 9 with the first finger on the low E string at the 5th fret. Here's a once through of the first 16 measures. I won't count aloud as I play, but the 4 count lead in will still be given. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have reached the 17th measure. We're going to begin playing an E5 power chord, and that's where the first finger is the root note on the A string at the 7th fret. The first 2 notes are going to be 8th notes, counted 1 and picked down and up. And we're going to use the low open E string along with this chord. On the 2 beat, we're going to have a quarter note rest. On the 3 beat, we're going to shift our hand position up a full step in pitch, so the first finger is barring the D, G, and B strings at the 9th fret. Okay, this creates a chord. We'll pick this down on 3, and it's going to ring out as a 16th note. On the E beat, right after 3, another 16th note. We're going to hammer on with the middle finger to that B string at the 10th fret, and the third finger goes to the D string at the 11th fret. And notice that I'm leaving that first finger locked on the 9th fret, barring those 3 strings. The last half of this measure is going to be very difficult to count, so what I'm going to do is avoid counting it. I'll just give you the 4 count lead in and play what we have so far for this measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we've reached the final 16th note of the 3rd quarter on measure 17. What we're going to do is lift the 2nd and 3rd fingers and go back to that first finger, which is barring the D, G, and B strings on the 9th fret. We're going to pick this down on the A beat. Okay, this is the final 16th note, and usually we'd pick this upwards, but in this case it's not possible or practical to use proper picking. We just have to do what works. On the 4 beat, we're going to play another 16th note by hammering back on with that middle finger to the B string at the 10th fret, and the 3rd finger going back to the D string at the 11th fret. We're going to pick the B string on the E beat after 4. Okay, and to finish up the measure, we're going to go back to the first finger, barring the D, G, and B strings at the 9th fret, and pick that down. So what I'm going to do is I'll just give you a 4 count lead in and play this measure without counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Measures 18 and 19 are going to be exact repeats of measure 17. So let's skip ahead to measure 20. We're going to go back to the E5 power chord, where the first finger is the root note on the A string at the 7th fret. We're going to pick this chord down on 1, and it's going to ring out for the first 3/8 of the measure through 2 as a dotted quarter note. On the and beat after 2, we're going to shift our hand position down a full step in pitch, so the first finger is now the root note on the A string at the 5th fret. We're going to pick this chord upwards, and it's going to ring out through 3 as another dotted quarter note for the next 3/8 of the measure. And to finish up the measure, what we're going to do is place the middle finger on the G string at the 6th fret. We're going to leave the 3rd finger locked where it is on the D string at the 7th fret, and lift up the pinky and 1st finger. We're going to play the open A string along with these 2 notes, pick downwards to finish up the measure. That's the 4 beat. So with the 4 count lead in, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play the 20th measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Okay, measures 21 through 24 are just a repeat of the main riff on guitar 1. Here's a quick once through of measures 17 through 24 on guitar 1. I won't count loud as I play, but the 4 count lead in will still be given. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's run through all 24 measures on guitar 1 just one time. I won't count loud as I play, I'll just give you the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the first 16 measures on guitar 1 during the interlude. You notice the yellow highlight at the beginning of the 1st measure and at the end of the 4th measure. Those are repeat signs. Once we reach the end of the 4th measure, it means to go back to the beginning of the 1st measure and repeat that passage a 2nd time, which gives us our first 8 measures. When we reach what appears to be the 5th measure on paper, you'll notice a repeat sign there. There's another one at the end of what appears to be the 8th measure there. We're going to play that passage twice as well, which will give us measures 9 through 16. And this is measures 17 through 24, the last 8 measures on guitar 1 during the interlude. The 8 measures are pretty much straight up in sequence. The only thing to take notice of is on what appears to be the 2nd and 3rd measures on this tab sheet, there's a diagonal line in the middle of the measure with a dot above it and below it. That just means to repeat the previous measure in place of this one. During the interlude, guitar 2 is going to double guitar 1 note for note during the 1st measure. It will be at rest for the entire 2nd measure, while guitar 1 and the bass carry out the rhythm. Guitar 2 will again double guitar 1 on the 3rd measure. Let's skip ahead to look at the 4th measure on guitar 2. This measure will be the 1st ending. On guitar 2, when we reach the 4th measure during the interlude, we're going to begin by playing a C5 power chord. That's where the 1st finger is the root note on the A string at the 3rd fret. We're going to pick this chord down on 1 and let it ring out as an 8th note. What we're doing here is accenting with the bass guitar and the drums, and the 3 instruments are going to break together for the bulk of this measure while guitar 1 carries out the rhythm. So on the upbeat after 1, you have an 8th note rest. On the 2 beat, there's a half note rest that rings out through 2 and 3. On the 4 beat, we have a 16th note rest. So what we're going to do is re-enter by accenting with the snare drum and the bass guitar on the E beat right after 4 with an upward stroke. That's where the first finger is on the low E string at the first fret. That's your root note, F5. That's the chord. We'll pick this up, and on the and beat right after that, we'll pick the chord down again. This time it rings out as an 8th note. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you a 4-count lead in and play the first 4 measures on guitar 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Measures 5 through 7 will be exact repeats of measures 1 through 3, and measure 8 will be very similar to measure 4 with a second interlude break in the supporting music. The power chord used to accent with the bass guitar and snare drum to re-enter will be 1 full step higher in pitch. Instead of an F5 power chord ending the 4th measure, it will be a G5 power chord ending the 8th measure. Otherwise, the 2 measures are identical. The G5 power chord is where the first finger is the root note on the low E string at the 3rd fret. The 8th measure will be the second ending. Here's a quick once through of the first 8 measures on guitar 2 with a 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Measures 9 through 16 will pretty much be the same as measures 1 through 8. The only major difference is that everything is now a full step higher in pitch, otherwise they are identical. The only other difference is the 16th measure. Guitar 2 will break on 1 and be at rest for the remainder of the measure. Here's a quick once through of measures 9 through 16 on guitar 2 with a 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. On measures 17 through 19, guitar 2 is just going to accent with the same E5 power chord used by guitar 1 along with the bass guitar and drums, and then break for the rest of these measures. Guitar 1 will actively fill to end these measures. On measure 20, guitar 2 will double guitar 1. At the beginning of measure 21, guitar 2 will play an open A5 power chord. This will ring out as a whole note picked down on the 1 beat. It will sustain out through measure 24 along with the bass guitar. Guitar 1 will go back to the main riff for these final 4 measures. Here's a quick look at measures 17 through 24 on guitar 2 with a 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the first 8 measures on guitar 2 during the interlude. Notice the yellow highlight at the beginning of the first measure and at the end of the 4th measure. These are repeat signs. The repeat sign at the end of the fourth measure is going to send us back to the repeat sign at the beginning of the first measure. We're going to play these first three measures a second time, and when we get to the fourth measure again, we're going to skip it. Notice the yellow highlighted one above the fourth measure. That means first ending. We're going to go directly to the second ending on that second pass through to give us our first 8 measures. What appears to be the fifth measure on paper is actually the 8th measure. And the empty measure at the end of the sheet doesn't mean anything, so just ignore it. And this is measures 9 through 16 on guitar 2 during the interlude. Notice the structure of this tab sheet is identical to the previous tab sheet, so there's no need to explain it any further. But do notice that we're playing everything one full step in pitch higher on this sheet. And this is measures 17 through 24 on guitar 2 to finish up the interlude. Notice what appears to be the second and third measures on this tab sheet. There's a diagonal line with a dot above it and below it. What that means is to repeat the previous measure in place of this one. Also notice the yellow highlights at the beginning and end of the last measure. We're going to let that measure sustain out 3 times for our last 3 measures of the interlude. The bass parts will be a combination of parts done on guitar 1 and guitar 2. It will work actively with guitar 1 most of the time, but will still break with the drums in guitar 2 at the start of measures 4, 8, and 12. It will re-enter doubling the same snare accents as guitar 2 at the end of these measures. Here's a quick once through of the entire interlude on bass. I won't count aloud as I play, but will still give the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the first 18 measures on the bass guitar during the interlude. Notice the yellow highlight at the beginning of measure 1 and at the end of measure 4. These are repeat signs. The repeat sign at the end of measure 4 is going to send us back to the beginning of measure 1 to repeat these measures again for a second time in sequence. Measures 1, 2, and 3 are also measures 5, 6, and 7. On that second pass, when we get to the fourth measure, notice the yellow highlighted one above it. That's the first ending. We're going to ignore it altogether on the second pass and go directly to the second ending. Okay, that's actually the fifth measure on paper, and you can tell by the yellow highlighted 2 above that. Also notice that measures 6 through 10 are using blue highlights. Okay, this follows the exact same structure as the first 5 measures. These are actually measures 9 through 16. Also notice the green highlights on what will be measures 4, 8, and 12. What this is where the bass guitar is going to accent with a snare drum in guitar 2 when it re-enters after short breaks in the music. And lastly, notice the very last measure on the tab sheet. Right in the middle of it, there's a diagonal line with a dot above it and below it. This means to repeat what was done on the previous measure in place of this one. And this is measures 19 through 24 on the bass guitar to finish up the interlude. There is one last detail to address. Right before the interlude, at 2 minutes and 54 seconds, the guitars will sustain a G5 chord for 2 measures. This will be a whole note tied to another whole note on the second measure. Bridge 3 will be cut off after a half of a measure. In short, the last measure of bridge 3 will actually be 2/4 time. The bass will sustain the root note on the low E string at the 3rd fret, and slide up in pitch and then back down on 4 to end the second measure. Here's a quick look at the last 4 measures of bridge 3 on guitar 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 2 measures on this tab sheet are actually the last 2 measures of bridge 3 on guitar 1. Notice the yellow highlight at the beginning of the second measure. What that means is that we're going to play this one measure in 2/4 time. In short, we're going to play half of a measure here. On the third measure, we're going to go back to 4/4 time, and that's it, 2 minutes and 50 seconds, where the interlude actually starts. Here's a quick once through of the last 4 measures of bridge 3 on guitar 2. I won't count aloud as I play, but a 4 count lead in will still be given. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's a quick once through of the last 4 measures on bridge 3 on the bass guitar. I won't count aloud as I play, but a 4 count lead in will still be given. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4. The structure of these 4 measures is exactly like that for guitar 1 at the end of the third bridge. Notice the first 2 measures. That's actually the last 2 measures of bridge 3 for the bass guitar. There's a yellow highlight at the beginning of measure 2. What that is 2/4 time. We're basically going to play half of a measure here. For the third measure, we're going to go back to 4/4 time. And notice that that's at exactly 2 minutes and 50 seconds. That's when the interlude actually begins.